My daughter thought I was just a foolish old woman when she drained my pension for her luxury vacation. She laughed at my tears, called me dramatic, said I should be grateful to contribute to family memories. 3 months later, she came back to an empty house and a lesson she'll never forget. Before I tell you how I made my own daughter regret the day she was born, hit that like button if you've ever been taken advantage of by family, and subscribe because this story has a twist that'll make you want to watch it twice. My name is Francine, and I'm 64 years old. I spent 37 years as a nurse, working double shifts, holidays, weekends, whatever it took to give my daughter Shanice the life I never had. My husband passed 5 years ago, and since then it's just been me in this house we bought together back in 1985. It's paid off now, sitting quiet in a neighborhood that's seen better days, but still feels like home. I live on my pension and a small amount of savings. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I earned every single penny of it. Shanice is my only child, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't spoil her. When she wanted to go to that expensive college out of state, I made it happen. When she got married to DeAndre and needed help with the down payment on their first house, I emptied my savings account without a second thought. That's what mothers do, right? We sacrifice, we give, we make sure our children have it better than we did. And for years, I told myself that Shanice appreciated it. She'd hug me, call me the best mama in the world, bring my grandkids over. Braylon's 12 now. Destiny just turned 9. Those kids are my heartbeat. But lately, something felt different. Shanice's visits became more about what she needed than how I was doing. She'd walk through my door with this rehearsed smile, ask about my health in that distracted way people do when they're really thinking about something else. Then came the request. It was a Tuesday afternoon when she showed up unannounced, mascara running down her cheeks, looking like her whole world was falling apart. She collapsed on my couch and told me they were in trouble, real trouble. According to Shanice, DeAndre had lost his job 3 weeks ago. They were behind on the mortgage, behind on car payments, drowning in debt. She said the bank was threatening foreclosure, that they could lose everything they'd worked for. My grandbabies could end up homeless. The way she cried, the way her voice cracked when she begged me to help, it broke something inside me. She needed $15,000. Not wanted, needed. She kept saying I was the only person in the world who could save them, that she had nowhere else to turn. I didn't have $15,000 just sitting around. My pension wasn't even accessible yet without penalties. But Shanice knew that. She'd done the research. She told me I could take an early withdrawal, that yes, there'd be fees and taxes, but what choice did we have? Family comes first, always. I sat there looking at my daughter's tears, thinking about my grandbabies' faces, and I made the decision that would change everything. The next morning, I walked into that bank and started the process of destroying my financial security. The officer tried to warn me, explained I'd lose nearly $7,000 in penalties and taxes on top of the $15,000 I was withdrawing, $22,000 total gone from my retirement fund. But I signed those papers anyway, because that's what you do for family. That's what I'd always done. I handed Shanice that check 2 weeks before I saw the truth. $15,000, signed with a shaking hand, because I knew what I'd just done to my future. She hugged me so tight, whispered "thank you, Mama" over and over, promised she'd pay me back as soon as DeAndre found work. I watched her drive away and felt this warmth in my chest, like I'd done something noble, like I'd saved my family. God, I was such a fool. It was a lazy Sunday morning when my world cracked wide open. I was scrolling through Facebook with my coffee, just passing time, when Shanice's profile popped up with new photos. The first picture stopped my heart. My daughter, my supposedly desperate, about to lose everything daughter, was standing on a white sand beach in a bikini I knew cost more than my monthly medication budget. The location tag read Turks and Caicos. I kept scrolling, each photo a fresh stab to my chest. Beachfront villa with an infinity pool. DeAndre on a jet ski, grinning like he didn't have a care in the world. Shanice in designer sunglasses, holding shopping bags from stores I couldn't even afford to walk into. and my grandbabies, sweet Braylon and Destiny, building sandcastles in paradise while I was at home rationing my blood pressure pills. The caption made me want to scream. Sometimes you just have to treat your family with a diamond emoji and an airplane. #blessed. #family first. I sat there trembling, reading the comments from her friends. You guys deserve this. What an amazing surprise vacation. Surprise. The word echoed in my head. I'd given my future, and she'd turned it into a surprise vacation? I called her right then, didn't even think about it. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. When she answered, I could hear waves in the background, laughter. I asked her point blank what the hell she thought she was doing. And you know what my daughter said to me? She told me not to be dramatic. Just like that, calm as anything. Said they needed this trip, that they'd been stressed, and the money was better spent on family memories than sitting in my retirement account collecting dust. I couldn't breathe. I told her she had lied to me, that I'd said DeAndre lost his job, that they were losing the house. She actually laughed, said they needed it, they needed a break from stress, that I should be happy I could give my grandkids this experience. Then I heard DeAndre in the background, loud and mocking, telling her to tell her mama to loosen up. And Shanice, my baby girl, the child I'd sacrificed everything for, she said something I'll never forget. She said I should be grateful to contribute to family memories. Grateful for being robbed. When I tried to argue, tried to make her understand what she'd done to me, she hung up, just cut me off mid-sentence like I was nobody, like my pain meant absolutely nothing compared to her tan. I drove to Shanice's house 3 days later, 45 minutes of my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white, rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd make her understand. When I got there, the house looked perfect. No foreclosure notice on the door, the lawn freshly cut. Their neighbor was watering his flowers, and when I asked if everything was okay with Shanice's family, he looked at me confused, said they were on vacation, that Shanice had asked him to watch the place for 2 weeks. 2 weeks in paradise while I was deciding which bills to pay first. I waited for them to come back. And when Shanice finally pulled into her driveway, tanned and glowing and relaxed, I was sitting on her front steps. The confrontation that followed showed me exactly who my daughter had become. She laughed when I demanded my money back, actually threw her head back and laughed, told me it was a gift, that there was no agreement to pay it back. When I raised my voice, DeAndre came out and called me selfish, said what else was I going to do with that money anyway? I was old. Then Shanice said the words that changed everything. She said I owed her for all the years she had to live with my boring, penny-pinching ways. When I reached for her arm, tried to make her look at me, she shoved me backwards, hard, started screaming at me to get out of her house, that I wasn't welcome anymore. And then my daughter, the baby I'd nursed and raised and sacrificed everything for, she slapped me across the face, told me not to come back until I learned some respect for her family. I left with my cheek stinging and my grandkids watching from the window, and something inside me died that day. That night, I sat at my kitchen table looking at my bank statement. $3,400. That's all I had left in the world. My mortgage was paid off, but there were property taxes, insurance, groceries, medications. I did the math over and over, and every calculation told me the same thing. I couldn't survive. I thought about my late husband, how he'd worked himself to exhaustion to buy this house, how proud he'd been the day we got the keys, and I thought about our daughter using my desperation to fund her luxury vacation. I found an old shoebox in the closet filled with photos, me and my husband on our wedding day, Shanice as a baby, our family at Christmas, and that's when it hit me. I'd spent 64 years being everyone else's foundation, and they'd left me with nothing, not even dignity. I closed that box and made a decision. If Shanice thought I was just a foolish old woman she could use and discard, I was going to teach her exactly how wrong she was. I picked up the phone and called my friend Paulette, the one who'd retired from her law practice last year. It was time to learn about my options. Paulette explained everything to me over coffee at her kitchen table. Elder financial abuse, theft by deception, coercion under false pretenses. She said I had a legitimate case, that Shanice could actually face criminal charges if I wanted to pursue it. But I didn't want the police involved. I didn't want lawyers and courtrooms and my grandbaby seeing their mother dragged through the system. What I wanted was something cleaner, something that would hurt exactly the way she'd hurt me. So I started planning. The house had been paid off for 6 years. In this market, Paulette estimated it was worth around $340,000. 340,000 reasons to disappear. I listed it with the realtor the following week, told her I needed a quick sale, cash offers only. Then I started packing. 40 years of memories sorted into boxes. Keep, donate, trash. Every item a decision. Every decision a small goodbye. I opened a new bank account at a different institution, one Shanice knew nothing about. I researched senior living communities in Georgia where the weather was warm and the cost of living was reasonable. I told absolutely no one what I was doing. Not my sister, not my church friends, not even Paulette knew the full extent of my plan. During those 2 months, Shanice occasionally called, always needed something. $100 for Braylon's field trip. Could I watch the kids next weekend? Did I have any extra money for Destiny's dance costumes? Each time I told her no, I could hear the annoyance in her voice. She started getting nasty, asking what was wrong with me, why I was acting so different. I played weak, told her I was just tired, that I wasn't feeling well, let her think I was falling apart, let her think I had broken me. The house sold in 3 weeks. A retired couple from Ohio, cash offer, no inspection contingency. On closing day, I signed those papers and walked out with a check for $338,000. I deposited it immediately into my new account and felt something I hadn't felt in years: power. The movers came 2 days later. I watched them load everything into the truck, every piece of furniture, every picture frame, every curtain rod. When they were done, I walked through the empty rooms one last time. The echoes of my footsteps sounded like freedom. I left the keys with the realtor and drove away without looking back. The post office had my forwarding address, a P.O. box in a town Shanice had never heard of. I disconnected my old phone number and got a new one, blocked Shanice on every platform, every account, every possible way she could reach me. 3 weeks later, I was settled in my new condo in Georgia, sipping sweet tea on my balcony, watching the sunset over unfamiliar trees. And I waited for the moment Shanice would discover what I'd done. I didn't have to wait long. I found out later what happened from Paulette, who Shanice tracked down in her desperation. Apparently, my daughter decided to visit me about 3 weeks after I left. Probably needed money again, or free babysitting, or whatever else she thought she was entitled to. She pulled up to the house and saw the sold sign. Paulette said Shanice described it like the ground had opened up beneath her feet. She ran to the door, peered through the windows at the complete emptiness inside, and started calling my phone over and over. Disconnected. She tried everyone, neighbors, church members, my old coworkers. Nobody knew where I'd gone, because nobody knew I was leaving. Shanice even filed a missing person report. Can you imagine? The police came, did their investigation, and told her exactly what she didn't want to hear. Her mother had sold her house voluntarily and relocated. I wasn't missing. I'd escaped. When she went to the post office, the bank, the utility companies, trying to find me, they all told her the same thing. That information was protected. They couldn't share it. That's when Shanice realized this wasn't an accident or a sudden decision. I had planned this, methodically, carefully. the way she'd planned her little vacation scam. She showed up at Paulette's office screaming, demanding to know where I was. Paulette handed her an envelope with my handwriting on it. Inside was the letter I'd spent weeks perfecting, every word chosen carefully, every sentence designed to cut as deep as she'd cut me. I told her everything in that letter, how the $15,000 she'd stolen was supposed to last me 3 years, how I'd been rationing my medication while she drank cocktails on the beach, how she'd slapped her own mother and felt righteous doing it. I explained that I'd sold the house her grandfather built, the house where she grew up, the house I was going to leave her in my will. Took my $338,000 and started over somewhere she'd never find me. I told her about my new condo in Georgia, my painting classes, my trips to the beach, how I was finally living instead of just surviving. I made it clear she wouldn't find me, that I'd blocked her number, changed my phone, erased myself from her life as completely as she'd erased her conscience. And I told her that her children, my precious grandkids, would grow up knowing their mother drove their grandmother into hiding. That would be the family memory she gave them, not Turks and Caicos, not jet skis and designer sunglasses, but the memory of the grandmother who disappeared because their mother's cruelty left her no choice. I ended the letter with the truth she needed to hear. This wasn't revenge. This was survival. And I signed it the way she'd once mocked me, your dramatic mother. Paulette said Shanice collapsed in her office, sobbing, clutching that letter like it might change if she read it enough times. But some things, once done, can't be undone. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. 6 months have passed since I left, and I'm sitting on my balcony in Georgia watching the morning sun turn the sky pink and orange. My condo is small, but it's mine, paid for in cash with money left over, invested properly this time with a financial advisor who actually cares about my future. I have friends here, women my age who meet for book club on Thursdays and take day trips to Savannah on weekends. I'm taking a painting class at the community center, and last week I actually sold a piece at the local art fair, $60 for something I created with my own hands. I frame that money instead of spending it. Paulette calls me sometimes with updates I don't ask for but secretly want to hear. Shanice hired a private investigator who found absolutely nothing. I'd covered my tracks too well. Apparently, word got around their church about what happened. People talk, and in a community like theirs, reputation is everything. Shanice's friends started looking at her differently, asking careful questions she couldn't answer without admitting what she'd done. The whispers followed her everywhere. And her marriage? Paulette says DeAndre blames her for losing what he called the bank of mama. Turns out, when the free money and free babysitting disappear, so does a lot of the convenience that held them together. Last month, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived at my P.O. box, forwarded through a chain I'd set up for emergencies. The handwriting was young, careful. Braylon had somehow tracked down the address, probably through his school records or some detail I'd missed. He wrote that he missed me, that he was sorry about what his mom did, asked if I could ever forgive them. I cried reading that letter, but not the way I used to cry. These weren't tears of pain or betrayal. They were tears of contemplation, of possibility. Maybe one day I'll write back to my grandson. Maybe one day I'll let him know what I am. But that day isn't today. Shanice still tries to reach me. Paulette says she calls from different numbers, leaves voicemails on Paulette's phone begging for just one conversation. But I never answer. I never will. Because I've learned something important in these 6 months of freedom. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I can forgive my daughter for what she did and still choose to never see her again. Those two things can exist together. I spent 64 years putting everyone else first, believing that sacrifice was the same as love. Shanice thought that made me weak, thought she could take and I'd just keep giving because that's what mothers do. She was wrong. The strongest thing I ever did was walk away. I didn't get my $15,000 back, but I got something worth so much more. I got peace. I got security. I got myself back. And every morning when I wake up in this little condo with the sun streaming through my windows, I thank God I was brave enough to choose me.